Hey everyone, another story time with Carolina. I had a really fantastic chat with a client today. We're planning their trip to Tanzania in September. So we got to talking about all the different things that they can expect. And then the conversation turned into, well, what was what was the most disappointing trip that you took? What was the scariest thing that happened to you on a trip? And I am not in a business of scaring people. The world is a huge place. It's an amazing place. And I think it's mostly filled with good people. But that said, I mean, mostly, right? So there are bad people everywhere. And if you are not afraid to walk outside in your town, then you shouldn't be afraid to walk the streets of, Buenos Aires or Istanbul or Ho Chi Minh City. So I think that really set them at ease. But of course, it got me thinking about all the different things that happened to me in the past 20 years of traveling, and majority of my experiences were fantastic. It also stems from the fact that I can be dropped anywhere in the world and I will make the best of it. That's just kind of how I am. I adjust very easily. I make the best of things. I really look for the positive. So it's very rare that I am unhappy when traveling. And of course, I have been in some intense situations. Who hasn't? If you've been on the road for many years, like us. I was in Cuba the day that Fidel Castro died. That was kind of intense. We didn't know what to expect if we're ever going to be allowed off the island. I've been through some crazy indigenous strikes in South America, all up and down the Andes. Hopefully, thankfully, those were usually geared towards train schedules and local businesses and not towards tourism, so it never turned ugly. We took a road trip through Central America, through Central Mexico once, and the road was blockaded with the teachers union, aka a local cartel. And I'm talking, that was fairly intense. Kids with machetes and trucks full of chickens blown up all over the road. And I had my kids with me, so they got an eyeful of what the world is like for some people. But anyway, so there were some pretty intense places, but none of those came to mind when they asked what was the most disappointing. And I have to say, the place that disappointed me the most, or the day that disappointed me the most, was a day that we spent in Cambodia. We planned a few weeks to be in Southeast Asia, mainly to focus on Thailand because it was a huge country that sold quite often, and I just needed to see and taste what people were doing. So we planned out a big itinerary through Thailand. But because we were so close to Thailand, and because Carlos really loves history, we added Cambodia, or just a few days in Siem Reap, in order to go to Angkor Wat. And if you have not heard of Angkor Wat before, just think of the movie Tomb Raider. It's this massive complex of ruins and temples, just completely taken over in places by the jungle and by these huge trees with the roots above the ground climbing all over the ruins. And we spent just 2 full days exploring the complex, and we could have really had a whole week there. You can do it by rickshaw, but you'd be fighting in traffic with baboons in the middle of the road, and you could do it by bus with other people, and you could do it by bike, which I really admired because it's in the jungle. It's like 100 degrees. It's super humid, and these tourists were biking, and it's like a good 2 kilometers from the gate to the first set of complex. we did it with our private guide, which was fantastic. He got us in through the back of the complex, so when we arrived right after sunrise, there was no one there. Everyone was in the beginning of the front of the gate, and we went through the back door, so they say. So these are the little things that we can put together that you would never even think of if you're trying to get it together on your own. So it was a really good experience. So I came out of Angkor Wat with awe. I was just in love with the people, the history. I really love the climate. I love rainforests. I love jungles. So it was just a perfect scenery for me. So I had really high hopes for this tour that I signed us up for, or for this experience. It was a cooking tour, but it was a charity cooking tour. So everything that we did for that full day, all the proceeds went to a local village that picks a family every time tourists book this experience, and all the proceeds goes to that family so that they can have food for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I mean, a dollar goes quite far in Cambodia. So I was really excited to participate in that. It was a win-win. My family got to taste local food, learn how to make a dish, experience a local market. And in return, a local family also got to enjoy having a few meals on us. So it was something that I was very excited about when I first heard about it, and the guide, introduced me to that idea. So I'm sad to say that that's the day that I say was the most disappointing experience. But let me fill you in. It started off wonderful. We woke up and we were welcomed in this restaurant that was just platforms in the jungle. We got to hang out in hammocks and have our mangoes and just wonderful fried things in the jungle, and it was still cool. So it was a really great introduction to the food. And then we set off to in our jeep deep in country, probably drove an hour and a half away from Siem Reap to a local village to kind of experience what the local people see when they go to a local market. So and I've been to markets all over the world, okay? I know what it's like to stand at a fish stand, and right next to it they're selling socks and kids' notebooks for school, and then pigs' heads and things like that. So I'm used to crazy markets and no hygiene and all that stuff, but this was it took me aback, and that's saying a lot. It was filled with live snakes and fish and meat just rotting in the sun with flies all over them, and just incredible sights of just, you could see the poverty, and it just broke my heart to be there, and to know how different Cambodia is from Thailand. Because coming from Thailand, the tourists' money has really elevated life for a lot of people in Thailand. So coming to Cambodia and not seeing that, transfer there as well, made me quite sad. So we got to see the market. We got to meet some of the people who sold their produce, and our guide was a great translator. And then we got back in our air-conditioned van, and we had our little cool cloths that the guide always provided us to cool us off, and he gave us cold refreshments, from his iced cooler. And then he pulls up to like a shack in the middle of nowhere, and this family comes out, probably a family of 10, children barefoot. You could see they have no electricity, no running water. And here we are, like all refreshed and just these like tourists, and we're told that this is the family that is going to get the proceeds from our tour. And so I know that he did it out of the goodness of his heart. I know that he wanted us to meet them and feel really good about what we're doing. And I'm sure he wanted them to meet us, but it became the most uncomfortable and just shameful feeling. You know, here we are with our Coca-Colas that just came from an ice bucket, and we're like, oh, cool, from an air-conditioned car, where these people don't have any sort of amenities. But again, I make the best of everything, and they were the sweetest. And obviously there was a language barrier, so there was a lot of hand motions and hugs and things like that. But I had a long talk with the guide afterwards about preparing people for that experience, because it was very heavy, and then we got it back into our van and drove off, and it was like quiet. My girls were quiet, my husband was quiet, no one spoke, because it made us feel like crap. It made us feel like privileged Americans who came and to gawk at a local family. And I know that's not what the experience was supposed to be like, but that's what it turned into. And from then on, obviously, we revamped the experience, and I no longer offer it that way. I'm happy to say afterwards we went to a herb garden, and we picked all our herbs that we were going to cook with, and we went to a peppercorn farm where we got to bring in the spices, and we cooked in this amazing outdoor kitchen, and it turned into an awesome culinary experience. But I just wish that maybe the family was invited to eat with us or to cook with us and share stories together. I wish it was a little bit more personal and not such a cultural shock for both parties. So that's really the most disappointing travel day for me. And I know that just sounds crazy. I know crazy things have happened to many people. I've had a client who fell off a horse while riding in Peru and broke her leg and was stuck in a hospital. I've had a client trapped after the earthquake in Chile. So I know horrible things can happen when you travel, and things that you can't expect. But this is the thing about booking with someone who keeps a level head and is always in the know about what's happening. That we're there for you. If something comes up, if your flight is delayed, if Fidel Castro dies and the airport gets closed, we will figure out a way to get you off the island. If you're stranded because of a strike, we won't abandon you. We will be there to make sure you are on the first bus across the border into the next country, or set you up in a hotel to wait out the strike, and so on and so on. There's always a solution. Just have to keep a level head, try to see the best of it, and just go with the flow. But anyway, I should post some pictures of that cooking class and those peppercorns, because they were spicy. Thanks for listening. Bye.